we have with us a man who is known to be one of the world's longest serving leaders. He's seen it all, through wars and economic recessions, from disintegration of countries to a changed world order.
That was the start of Putin's trip to India. And as you guys just heard, he has seen it all, from recessions to disintegration. By the way, he's also the first president of any country to have an arrest warrant out for himself from the International Court of Justice. He's also the first leader of a country that was invaded while he had nuclear weapons. This happened when Ukraine went into Kursk and took over part of Russia. So, now let's talk about why Putin is doing this trip. You see, Russian sales has been a bit down. People don't want to buy Russian oil. So, he's not hitting his quota, and much like every salesperson in the world, he now has to go out on sales trips at the end of the year. That's exactly what this is. Just last month, the biggest Indian oil company stopped importing Russian oil after sanctions. And then, this month, we have Putin visiting India. I'm not good at math, but I can add 1 + 1. In fact, in this interview, one of the first questions he was asked was about oil sales to India. Take a listen.
But has India reduced Russian intake of oil after pressure from the West?
Well, there is a certain decline in overall trade turnover during the first 9 months of this year. This is just a minor adjustment. Overall, our trade turnover stands almost at the same level as before. I can't give you exact monthly figures right now, but trade in petroleum products and crude oil, as well as the production of petroleum products for consumers of oil, Russian oil, is running smoothly in India. As for India's purchases or purchase of energy resources from Russia, well, I would like to note, and have already mentioned this publicly once, the United States itself still buys nuclear fuel from us for its own nuclear power plants. That is also fuel, uranium for the reactors operating in the United States. If the US has the right to buy our fuel, why shouldn't India have the same privilege? This question deserves thorough examination, and we stand ready to discuss it.
I don't think Putin was expecting this to be such a tough interview, but he kept getting questions that he was not expecting. Right after this, he was asked about why did Russia annex Crimea? Is it because Russia needs the Sevastopol base? Well, take a listen to what he said.
Was that also the basis for what happened when you decided to annex Crimea, your only warm water port, a very important strategic port for Russia, and then Russia was no longer part of G8. Today, the West claims or says that your actions in the recent past is the reason for, and I quote unquote, the isolation of Russia.
We didn't need to seize that important port in Crimea because it was ours already.
By the way, just a quick reminder for everyone who's not caught up, Ukraine doesn't have a proper navy, and despite that, they've been able to push back the whole Russian Black Sea fleet from Crimea. All thanks to the special military operation that little Vladimir started. This is when Putin decides to go on his infamous history rant. This was the same lesson that he gave Tucker Carlson when he visited the Kremlin, and it's the same lesson he's now giving to Indian journalists. He talks about how Crimea has always been part of Russia. Ukraine has always been part of Russia. And that's why any land that he's capturing in this invasion is not technically annexation. The only thing he forgot though was that China can use the same logic and start taking over Russian land. Nonetheless, after this history lesson, he gets hit with the hardest question yet. If he's truly doing this to protect ethnic Russians who speak Russian in Eastern Ukraine, why is he still killing the same people? We have undeniable proof that Russian army is carrying out a genocide against the people that Putin supposedly is protecting. And on top of that, Russia is shelling apartment buildings, it's shelling malls in the areas that Putin claims to be Russian. What is that all about? Take a listen.
the fact that, you're mentioning the history, and it brings me to what I did when the conflict was underway. I had traveled to Donetsk, I traveled to Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and most of the people over there are Russian speaking. They speak Russian language. They were very disappointed with Kyiv that it was banned in eastern Ukraine. But they were also a little shocked that how is Putin doing this to us? We are his people. A lot of women I spoke to were in shock. So what do you have to say to people in eastern Ukraine who actually have families in Russia, who on a daily basis move from Ukraine to Russia? So what do you have to say to them?
The answer is quite straightforward. These individuals presumably resided in those parts of Ukraine, specifically in the areas of the Lugansk and Donetsk region, that remained under the control of the Kyiv authorities at the time. Meanwhile, that part of the Lugansk or Donetsk region outside their control was being subjected to intense military action by the Kyiv authorities. We were consequently forced to extend support to those areas that had declared independence. That is the first point. Secondly, we provided people with an opportunity to express their will in an open referendum. Those who believed it was in their interest to join Russia voted accordingly. Those who did not were free to leave unhindered for other parts of the Ukrainian state.
Oh, the infamous Russian referendum in the occupied Ukrainian regions. Well, we have a clip of how votes were carried out. This clip just shows how ahead Russia truly is when compared to the United States and other Western democracies. You see, in Russia, soldiers actually go to people's houses to get their votes. On top of this, soldiers will actually tell you who you should vote for. Compare that to Europe or the United States. No one is coming to our house to get my vote. No one is even telling me who I should vote for. I have to figure all that out on my own, and then I have to drive to the polling location to cast my vote. Hopefully one day we can be as advanced as Russia is today. That's just a joke, by the way. But if Putin wanted the world to believe that this whole referendum was not a joke, maybe he should have come up with a number that was a little bit more believable than what he announced. According to the Kremlin, in this Russian referendum, 98% of Ukrainians voted to join Russia. You can't get 98% of people to agree on anything. I could say let's have ice cream for dinner, and even then I would not get 98% of people to agree with me. In fact, let's look at Putin's own history. In 2000's Russian presidential election, the last time Russia had a real presidential election, Vladimir Putin himself only got 53% of the votes. But now he wants the world to believe that 98% of Ukrainians want to join Russia. That's just not true, and it's not even believable. But then again, maybe that's the kind of results you get when you have soldiers with guns coming to your house to get the vote. Another thing I want to point out from this interview is how Putin's reasoning that he gives for why he started this invasion keeps changing depending on who he's talking to. Now, in this interview, he's obviously talking to the Indian audience. That's why he talks about that he had to invade Ukraine because it was NATO who made him do it. But when he's talking to the Russian audience, he makes the case that he's invading Ukraine because Ukraine has always been part of the Russian Empire. And as we've been saying, Putin is trying to rebuild the Soviet Union. He just doesn't want the world to know. He wants everyone to believe that it was NATO who forced him to start this war, when in reality, there are no NATO soldiers inside Ukraine. It's the Russian soldiers who keep on dying by the thousands every single week because of a special military operation that Putin started.
Let me remind you, we were not the ones to start this war. The West egged Ukraine on and supported the events orchestrating a coup d'etat. That was the point that triggered the events in Crimea, followed by developments in southeastern Ukraine, in Donbass. They don't even mention it. We've tried to resolve these issues peacefully for 8 years, signed the Minsk agreements, hoping that they could be resolved through peaceful means. Our special military operation isn't the start of a war, but rather an attempt to end one that the West ignited using Ukrainians' nationalists. That's what is really happening right now. That's the crux of the problem.
Then he accidentally also lets it slip that every policy has consequences, and he's starting to see that many countries around the world are collapsing just like the Soviet Union collapsed. I think he needs a mirror to realize which country he's talking about. If he just takes a look at all the economic data coming out of Russia, he'll quickly realize he's making the same mistake that he's warning about.
That we always need to very carefully look at our every step, and we need to understand the consequences of that. That's number one. Number two, it is very important not only for the former Soviet Union, but it applies also to Russia. What was the conclusion that I came to? It is that the Soviet Union, at a certain point of time, was in such a state that its leadership, and possibly even ordinary citizens, believed that it was so big, so great, that nothing, ever, under any circumstances would happen to it. And this idea of grandeur is the point when a country starts to make one mistake after another, thinking that everything is all right. Yes, we made a mistake here and was a small failure there, but we're so big that it will always pass, we'll survive. And the number of mistakes grows like a snowball, and is getting harder to manage that. I see the same as happening with some other countries today. Therefore, I'm keeping an eye.
Well, this is a good time to shift focus to Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, who gave an interview at a similar time when Putin was giving his interview. Rubio talked about how the Ukrainian economy actually has a chance to rebuild and become bigger than the Russian economy if we can end this war peacefully. Take a listen.
Allows them not just to rebuild their economy, but to prosper as a country, be a country that has an economy that grows theoretically, doing the right things. In 10 years, Ukraine's GDP could be larger than Russia's. These are the kinds of things. Stop the war, make sure they never get invaded or attacked again, protect Ukraine's long-standing and long-term sovereignty and independence so that they don't become a puppet state, they're actually independent and sovereign, and allow their economy not just to recover, but to prosper and turn it into a story of prosperity. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Because ultimately, the decisions have to be made, in the case of Russia, by Putin alone, not his advisors. Only Putin can end this war on the Russian side. So I think we're going to explore. We have tried to bring both sides together and see what proposals we could come up with that both sides could live with. We're going to do everything we can to make it work. That's what we've been doing for 10 months. That's been our aim and our goal here the entire time. I think we've made some progress. We've gotten closer, but we're still not there. We're still not close enough. But that could change. I hope it changes.
One of the problems with making videos like these, where we show a lot of drone strikes, even if no human or Russian soldiers are getting hurt in the video, YouTube usually demonetizes or restricts our videos. In fact, in the last week, we had 4 of our videos get demonetized. According to YouTube, showing drone strikes or even footage from the front lines is not advertiser friendly, and that's why the videos are restricted. But this is the reality of modern warfare, and this is the war Ukrainians are fighting and trying to survive. So we believe it's important to cover this all, and that's why we launched our own platform, Basics Insider. We built it from scratch, so we don't have any restrictions. We don't have to blur our drone strike, we don't have to blur frontline footage, and we don't have to blur Russian air bases getting destroyed. On top of this, we actually don't run any ads on the site. That way, we don't have to censor ourselves just because advertisers are not happy about what we are covering. We don't fund the site through ads. We fund it through your support. So if you're someone who's interested in coverage like this and you want to watch our videos uncensored and get bonus content that we just cannot upload here on YouTube, then definitely go join us at basicsinsider.com. You can also click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen. By joining, you can watch all the content that we have already uploaded and all the videos we will upload in the future. On top of that, you'll be supporting our coverage and supporting our channel. So thank you so much. My name is Sam, and I'll see you guys in the next one.